Hey there, welcome to this video. In this particular video, we are going to talk about environment variables and how you can manage them with your Spring Boot projects locally. So let me switch over to IDE. So this is IntelliJ. Okay, it can be any IDE, but normally what happens is in a Spring Boot project, you generally have these kind of placeholders, right? You normally would hard code stuff. For example, if you are building a feature wherein you are allowing users to do authentication using Google, GitHub. So you would have OAuth configured, right? You might have some keys related to OAuth configuration over here, which would be sensitive information, right? And normally what developers do is they hard code that stuff over here, right? So what environment variable mean is instead of hard coding, you use placeholders like this, okay? So these are two placeholders that I'm using, and instead of hard coding them, when you run the application during runtime, these placeholders are injected. Okay, so this allows you to commit your application.properties to GitHub. Okay, because normally what happens is if things are hard coded, developers are reluctant of sharing their configuration with other devs or with teams, right? Now, if you're working in a team environment, it's important that you manage these locally within your machine. And I'm going to share information as to how you can do that in your IDEs. Okay. So yeah, that's what we are going to cover. We are going to cover managing environment variables in our IDEs locally with Spring Boot projects. All right. Now, number one thing you need to remember about environment variables is you need to stop hard coding them. If you are hard coding environment variables, it's not a good practice, of course, because if you are creating some keys, some secrets that are just for you, okay, then that means they are just for you, right? You cannot share it with your team or you cannot commit it publicly, right? And that is where this thing comes into picture, right? So yeah, I'm going to demonstrate this and I'm going to make use of multiple IDs. So we are going to take a look how you can do this in IntelliJ, in Eclipse, in STS. We're also going to cover VS Code. Now, let me tell you over here, the steps for Eclipse and STS are almost same, right? They are similar, but for VS Code they differ, and for IntelliJ it differs, right? So yeah, that is what this video is going to be about. I'm going to take an example of a hands-on project, a live project, not a big major application, but it would be a simple application which I'll make use of as a POC, and I'll demonstrate this thing to you, okay? And we'll see different ways as to how you can create an external env file and get your, so you can see over here, my name. So when you run the application, my name is John11 over here, okay? So it's picked up from this file, and you can modify this file. And you can have a gitignore configured on your local machine that can say that don't commit .env files to GitHub or any sort of version control that you're using in your organization, right? So you can instruct gitignore to do that. But if you instruct gitignore to ignore application.properties, then what would happen is if your code is being used by some other developers, okay, they might have the properties missing. Okay, so it's best to externalize these sensitive information, right? So yeah, without further ado, we'll jump right into the video. If you're liking the content, be sure to subscribe and like this particular video. In the comment, let me know what do you think about this video, and are there any other practices that I should cover with regards to Spring Boot. All right, and without further ado, let's jump right in. So let's start talking about managing environmental variables in IntelliJ. So what I've done is I have this IntelliJ IDE open, and I've also created a very simple Spring Boot application. So this is my main application file. Okay, this application just has one controller. Okay, so after you create a Spring Boot project from either the start.spring.io, okay, or if you're using IntelliJ Ultimate, you create the project. Okay, you add a controller over here. This is a very simple controller. It does literally nothing, just prints hello over here. It has one endpoint, and the application.properties just has this one property, which is the application name. Now, if I run this application and if I head over to the browser, when I hit the URL, I'm going to see hello being printed, of course, because I'm returning hello over here. All right. Now, let's say I wish to make this thing dynamic, okay, and I wish to get some properties from application.properties, okay, because this is the place where you are going to have all your properties related to application being stored, okay. So what you can do is here, let's say I add a property, I say my, okay, app, and I'll say env, okay, and I'll say and I say, let's say name over here, okay, and I can say John, okay, let's say I added the John over here. Now how do I get John over here? Okay, so what I can do is I can have a variable over here, private string, and I can say my env variable, something like this, okay, and I can make use of my env variable here, okay. I'll get rid of this exclamation, okay, this is done. Now, how do you make sure that this my_env variable has this value, whatever is assigned over here? Okay, so for that, we can make use of value annotation over here, value, okay, and I'm going to say dollar over here, okay, and here I can say my.app. So we need to have this exact name over here. So I'll just copy this, come here, I'll say my.app.env. Okay, now let me run this. Let us see what the output looks like. Now if I refresh, you'll see hello John. Okay, so far so good. Okay, we are able to fetch the value injected in the or added in the application properties into our code. Okay, but now the problem over here is when you're working with application.properties and when you're having some configuration related stuff over here, you might have some sensitive stuff like passwords, URLs, or even keys, right? So API keys, secret keys, and all of this. And you don't want to hard code this over here because this particular file is being pushed to Git and it's being shared with your team members as well. Okay, so I want to externalize this thing over here. Okay, so this value should be residing on my machine. Okay, I should be the only person who should be able to see this, and it should not be in the application. So what can I do over here? So here in the application properties, I can actually remove this. Okay, so I'll say over here dollar, open and close curly braces. Okay, and I'll say name over here. Okay, or I can say my name. Okay, whatever name or whatever is the name of the variable that I wish to set. So we have this variable set, and now I need to make sure, like during runtime, this particular value should have this particular variable, in fact, or this particular placeholder here should have some value assigned so that this entire thing makes sense. Okay, now if I run this over here, okay, it's going to crash, of course. So if you see this, it's crashed, right? And of course the error is, if you come over here, okay, the error, if you see, okay, injection of dependencies failed. Okay, and this is because like the value that you are injecting. Okay, so if you search over here, okay, this is not being printed, but this is actually the reason. Could not resolve my name over here. You can see my name. Okay, so what is my name? So we need to provide the value for my name over here, and this you can do very easily in IntelliJ. So IntelliJ is a beautiful tool over here. So you can come over here, all right, and you can click on these three dots. Okay, so this is from where your application runs. You will come over here. You'll say edit over here. Okay, so what I'm actually doing is I'm editing the run configurations over here. Okay, now over here you'll see this env variables over here, right? You can see. So here I can say my underscore name over here, and I'll have John, something like this. Okay, so I have this added, and I can say apply. Don't say okay. First you have to say apply so that it's applied and saved, and then you can say okay, and then you have to run this. Now we won't get any error, but if you run this, you'll see hello John over here, right? So this is how you can have environmental variables externalized over here. Okay, or variables basically externalized over here in IntelliJ. All right, so this is done, and now what will happen is there will be scenarios wherein you might have a lot of these. So let's say you have a lot of configuration done over here, and let's say you have 50 variables over here, right? So you can have your application keys, your database passwords, your application is connected to. So how can you set all of that over here? Okay, so if you come here, okay, here you have separate variables by semicolon. So you can add a semicolon here, okay, and I can say over here my name 2 over here, and I can say John 2, something like this, and this becomes John 1. Okay, I'll say apply. Okay, my name 2 is the thing over here, so I'll add one more. So this will be env 2 over here. Okay, and this is my name 2, right? I don't think I changed anything else. Okay, so John 1 and John 2. Okay, so this is done. My name 2. 1 second, I just forgot to check the name of the variable. So my name 2 and my name, that is what it is. Okay, my name and my name 2, right? Now we need to get my name 2 over here. So what I will do is I'll come over here, my env variable. Okay, I'll come over here, and this is 2. I'll say 2 over here, and I can actually append this also. Okay, like this. All right, I'll run this. Let us see if we are able to get the second variable also. So if you come here and if you refresh, you should see hello John 1, John 2, right? So we are getting both the values now. And if you commit this onto GitHub or any public repository, this is not exposed because this is actually in the file, okay, and the values are actually in the configuration that you are injecting during the runtime, right? Now, instead of doing this over here, okay, this is one way of managing things, okay, but if this thing becomes too long, there are like, let's say 10 or 20 variables, then managing it in this single input box becomes really difficult, right? So what you can also do is over here, you will see this browse button. So you can browse for .env files or any sort of scripts over here, okay? Or if you see this button over here, if you click on this, okay, you have an option to edit environmental variables over here. So you can see you can edit environment variables over here like this, and you can keep on adding from here also. That is something that you can do. Or you can even externalize it into a new file. Okay, so I'll show you how you can externalize. Okay, so I'll just copy this entire thing. I'll come over here. Okay, and over here in the root, I'll just add one file. I'll say .env, something like this. Now over here in .env, I can paste this data, okay, and I can move this onto new line. Okay, now let's say if I'm having like 50 variables, environmental variables. So I can have 50 environment variables set over here, and you can instruct IntelliJ to pick this up during runtime. Okay, so here I have this .env file. Okay, now what I can do is I can come over here. Okay, so this is one configuration. Actually, I can duplicate this configuration. So here you can see this copy configuration option, or you can even add a new configuration. It's totally up to you. So I'll just copy this configuration. New one is created. I can say demo1 application external, something like this. External because it has env file. So I can simply say env file like so. Okay, and here instead of adding the variables this way, I can get rid of this. Okay, I can browse over here for env file. So you can browse to the location where you had created the .env file. I created it over here. I'll say okay, and you can see this is picked up over here. Like this is added. You can say apply, and you can say okay, right? Now here in the file, let me add 1 and let me add 2. So I've added one extra digit, okay, so that we know it's coming in from here, right? And you have an option to choose the configuration, like using which configuration you want to run. So if you want like the hard-coded variables, you can run from here. If you want from the env file, you can select this and say run over here. And the moment you select this, okay, so the application is already running. So I'll have to stop this and run this. Okay, so it's running now. Okay, I'll come over here. It should be hello John 11, John 22. So if I refresh, you can see. So this is now being picked up from the env file over here. Okay, and what you can do is if you're working in a team and if you don't want this to be shared with others, you can actually ignore this in Git. So if you're committing your code to Git, you can actually say git ignore. Within git ignore, you can ignore this particular file, and this is not committed in that case. All right. So this is one way of externalizing sensitive data from application.properties. Most of the time, what happens is developers just push the code having like all the sensitive information in this application.properties, and they're pushing it to Git and sharing the source code with the teammates, which is not a good practice. And I believe this is an amazing way using IntelliJ to manage things. So I hope you have been able to follow along, and I hope this has been helpful. Okay, and yeah, I hope this was useful. Now let's talk about Eclipse and how you can manage the environment variables in Eclipse. Now here in Eclipse, I have a similar project open. So here I have this application main file, okay, demo1 application. Here I have this controller, okay, which is the hello1 controller. Here we are making use of env, like my app env and my app env2, and we are printing this as the output. I have this also created over here, which is application.properties. All right. So what I would be doing, okay, let me zoom in a bit. I'm pretty sure you're not able to see. So now I hope you can see. Okay, this is pretty decent size. Okay, for font. So I hope you can see like how I'm making use of env variables. Now what I'm going to do is, if I run this, okay, so let me run. Okay, if I run this, of course this will fail, right? Because it's not able to pick the variables. What are these variables? What you can do is you can go to run. Here you have this run configuration. Select that, okay, and here you have under Java application, you will have your application name over here, right? So you can select this, and here you will see main arguments, and here you will see one tab called environment, right? So what you can do is you can add the environment over here. You have an option to select. Now select will just select the, like it will open the list of environment variables from your system, okay, which I don't want to do. I instead want to add a new one, right? So here what I would do is, what is the name of mine? My name and my name too over here. So I'll just say run configuration, okay, and I'll add my name, and I'll say John1. I'll say okay, and I'll add my name too. I'll say John2, something like this, and I'll say apply. I'll say run over here. So after applying, you have to make sure you click run. Okay, application is running, so it should be hello John1 John2. Now if I refresh, you will see hello John1 John2, right? So this way we are able to make use of the environment variables that are set externally in Eclipse, right? And remember this option here, you can go to run configuration. Okay, now I could not find any option as to how you can link the external env file. Okay, so that's something there, but I of course I could do the externalization of variables from the application.properties from the using this option of run configuration. All right, so yeah, I hope you have been able to follow along, and I hope this was useful. Now let us start talking about Visual Studio Code and how can you externalize these variables. So here I have the placeholders, and I've opened the same project in the Visual Studio Code over here. Okay, so you will see that here the project is open, but what we would do is, okay, we would need additional folder over here, which is the configuration folder. So I would come over here at the top and go to run, and here you have an option to add configuration. When you say add configuration, you'll get this Java option. Okay, now if for some reason you are not getting this Java option, be sure to check the list of extensions that I have over here. Okay, so here I have added a few extensions that are important for Java developers. Okay, so debugger for Java, extension pack for Java. All right, this is something that I've added. Gradle for Java. Okay, and if you scroll down, okay, these are some extensions. Maven for Java. And yeah, test runner for Java. I think there are not much Java plugins. Okay, there are quite a few because I use Visual Studio a lot for other tasks as well. Okay, but yeah, once you see this over here, this thing which I was showing, add configuration, select Java over here. The moment you select Java, you'll see this .VsCode folder being added. And over here, you will see that the configuration tag will be added. Okay. Now this is coming in from IntelliSense is what I believe over here. All right. Now over here, what you can do is after main class, okay, you can add your own configuration as well. Okay, so you can say env over here, and here you can add the list of variables. Okay, so what is the list of variables? You have my name. Okay, so I have my name. I'll add the value over here is John VsCode. Okay, example. And then I can copy this and I can have comma and my name. I could have 2, my name 2. I believe that's what it is. Yes. And John 2. Something like this. I'll save this. All right. Now, once this is saved, what you do is head over to like run option over here. You can say run without debugging. So I'll say run without debugging. I want to debug. All right, and you can see the application started. All right, come over here. You can access the URL and you should see hello John VsCode. This is John VsCode and John 2 code. Okay, whatever you add, it will be picked up by the application. All right, so it's coming in from this configuration over here. Let me close this as well. Okay, it's coming in from this configuration that you can see. All right, you can see. All right, and this is important because this is the JSON file that is defining the configuration for your application to run. Okay, so it would work this way if you're making use of Visual Studio Code over here. All right, so I hope this was useful. If you're enjoying this course so far, then you should also check out our complete full stack development mastery roadmap, the details of which are given in the description below. It comprises of multiple courses that you would have access to. Also, you'll find these details on the website as well. All right, the website is embarkx.com, and I would highly encourage you all to check this out to become a pro developer.